All right, my peoples, thanks for joining me today. I mean, what I don't pass, Gary, and we've got to talk about what's going on in Ghana. So Ghana recently passed an anti-LGBTQ bill, which they called the Human Sexual Rights and Family Value Act. They passed this on Wednesday. And this is a bill that has been floating around since 2021. It's been 3 years in making. It's a bill that was introduced in Parliament and has really been sponsored and pushed by this man, Sam George. And it's a bill also that the current president, Nana Akufo-Addo, has expressed that while he's in office, he's going to ensure that he supports any legislation regarding that. And so ever since this bill got passed in Ghana recently, it has sparked, reactions. A lot of Ghanaians support the bill mostly. And then you have, naturally, the West who are against this. You have the likes of, Kamala Harris, the Vice President of the United States, speaking up against this. And you also have people in the West, African Americans or Black Americans, whichever one you want to use, also against this bill. Now, I'm going to discuss this because I think it's something that we have to talk about. But before we do, I want you to take a look at the moment when this bill was passed in Ghana. Take a look at this.
I'm going to put a question. Those in favor that the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill 2021 be taken through the third reading, say aye. Aye. Those against, say no. Honorable members, the ayes have it. The Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill 2021 is read the third time and passed.
Okay, so you can tell that was an overwhelming vote for this bill. I mean, this bill has been a contention amongst people who are not in Africa. When this bill was floating around, a lot of people were talking about it. There was even time when Kamala Harris was in Ghana last year. I want you to take a look at when she was asked by a reporter about this bill when she visited Ghana, a trip that she made it her duty to go to pressure the president of Ghana, as she did also to Uganda and many other African countries who have also since passed something like this. She made it a point to go to Ghana last year. And so I want you to take a look at her response when asked about what her thought on this bill when it was being proposed. And I'll be right back.
Madam Vice President, you have made clear that the message of this trip is centered on a collaborative future. At the same time, the Biden administration committed to calling out any foreign government that advanced anti-gay legislation or violates human rights. All three of the countries that you are visiting on this trip have advanced or proposed anti-gay legislation. Ghana has proposed a bill that would imprison those that engage in same-sex intercourse. Gay sex remains a crime in Tanzania, and same-sex relationships are outlawed in Zambia. What have you said to the president and plan to say to other leaders on this trip about this crackdown on human rights?
I'll start. I have raised this issue, and let me be clear about where we stand. First of all, for the American press who are here, you know that a great deal of work in my career has been to address human rights issues, equality issues across the board, including as it relates to the LGBT community. And I feel very strongly about the importance of supporting the freedom and supporting and fighting for equality among all people, and that all people be treated equally. I will also say that this is an issue that we consider, and I consider, to be a human rights issue, and that will not change.
Okay. I'm going to also I'm going to let you listen to Nana Akufo-Addo's response later on. And I think that his response is a key part of what I'm going to talk about today. And we'll talk about that later on. So now I mentioned that the bill has garnered a lot of reaction. A lot of Ghanaians support the bill, at least from what we can see. So take a look at the reaction from Ghanaians who seem to support the bill more than oppose the bill.
I think it's a good thing. In Ghana, we all know our stance. It's only a fraction of people who are against this. And I think it's good that they've passed it. Yeah.
Now, would you like the president to actually assent it into law as soon as possible?
Yeah, that's good. It should be as soon as possible. Yeah, it shouldn't waste time at all.
Oh, Charlie, me, the bill, once you know they infringe upon the rights of anyone, it's okay. But if it's a bill that will infringe on the rights of the citizens or the citizens in the country, then the people who they do the LGBTQ thing, then I'm not in support of it. But if it no go affect them there, then fine, why not?
For that bill, I'm very happy it is being passed because it is been a long-awaiting bill that we Ghanaians are waiting that it should be passed. Because our culture and our norms, we need to follow what our forefathers taught us and what is in the Bible. Biblically, it is good that this bill has been passed.
Okay, so I think it's a good thing because I can't see any of my fellow ladies doing stuff like that. So it's good that they've actually passed a law to actually penalize those who are found doing that. Yeah, so that's my view.
So now I want you to take a look at reaction by African Americans or Black Americans who seem to oppose this bill. And I'll be right back.
A new anti-LGBTQ bill just passed in Ghana. And if you're an LGBTQ person in Ghana or you support the LGBTQ community in Ghana, you could go to jail. Being LGBTQ is already illegal in Ghana. And currently LGBTQ people can face up to 3 years in jail just for being LGBTQ. But with this new human rights and family values bill, it increases jail time of up to 5 years. Yeah. That's not all, y'all. That 5-year jail sentence wouldn't just apply to those who identify as LGBTQ, but also apply to anyone who was convicted of promoting or advocating for the LGBTQ community. This bill is not the law of the land yet, because Ghana's president still has to sign off on it. I'm not going to speculate what he's going to do, but he has said he will support something like this in the past. Speaking of support, a host of faith communities sponsored the bill.
Black Americans in the diaspora should stay away from Ghana, Kenya, and Uganda. The same Ghana that says Africans must build Africa, the year of return is the same Ghana that's taken IMF loans and said that Britain and them have a great shared values and future. The same Ghana that destroyed a house for allegedly being an LGBTQ resort, then they say, oh, it was because the owner sold it to another property.
The Ghanaian parliament has recently backed an amendment to the infamous anti-gay bill which would make identifying as LGBT punishable by a 3 to 5 year prison sentence and a 10-year sentence for activists who campaign for LGBT rights. It's very fascinating how at this point the rest of the world has moved far past deliberations on sexual orientation. Most progressive countries are currently busy trying to fly us to Mars or the moon or even set up neurochips in our brains and hands, and here we are as Africans still debating on whether to put gay men in prison for consensual activities between adults in their private lives. This is the kind of stuff that in about 100 years people will look back on this time in history and wonder how humans could have been so ignorant and atrocious to one another. And for those who are screaming about cultural beliefs or differences, if your culture participates or encourages genocide of certain demographics, you are in a barbaric and backwards culture, and that is not the side to be on or defend. All of you are on the wrong side of history, and it is pretty sad that you may never even realize it.
Okay, so let's talk about this, because this is something that African countries are grappling with. It is something that we have seen in recent time, where the likes of Uganda passed a very harsh bill last year, which basically criminalizes and also put to death anyone who practices the LGBTQ lifestyle. We know that many other countries like Kenya also oppose this, Nigeria in 2014 passed their own version of a bill like this, and many other countries. It is even said that 33 out of 54 African countries have passed a similar bill. Now, what this bill does is basically criminalizes, anyone who practices the lifestyle, the LGBTQ lifestyle, by imprisoning them up to 3 years in prison. Or anyone who supports or advocates for LGBTQ lifestyle will receive a sentence of up to 5 years in prison. And so that's what this bill is. So as you can expect, the West is upset about this. They're upset at this bill and they're all over it. And I want to discuss why this is going to be a problem for Ghana and why Ghana is essentially about to become enemy number one for the West. And we're going to delve into this because Ghana did something that basically backed her into a corner. And I want to dissect that. But first of all, let's talk about the hypocrisy of the West to dictate to sovereign nations in Africa about a lifestyle that they don't accept. You see, this is something also that was opposed in the United States. See, this country has been around for over 300 years, right? The country has been around for a long time. They've always opposed LGBTQ homosexuality lifestyle. They've always opposed it. It wasn't up until 2012 that they took a black man, a black president of the United States, the first black president of the United States to pass this. Previous presidents before him and even after that are white have never passed this. They've never publicly supported it. They've never publicly pushed it. But in 2012, the United States finally passed a law that gave rights to LGBTQ community in 2012. So that was recently. That wasn't that long ago. And now these same people now want to dictate to the rest of the world and impose something that they just accepted not too long ago. They just accepted it. Now they want to impose it on everyone else. So what happened the years prior to that? They call it humanitarian crisis. They call it humanitarian violation against humanity and human rights. Okay, so let's just, for argument's sake, let's say that that is the case. What happened to the United States years before 2012? So basically, the United States was violating human rights the entire time before 2012. And for most part, it is still largely condemned in this country. I mean, this country isn't something that is open arms to that lifestyle. You find conversations about this all the time. It's something that every parent grapples with when they have to drop their kids off to school, and there are states in the United States that teach kids these lifestyle, and parents have no say so. It's something that every parent grapples with. The LGBTQ and transgender lifestyle, the pronouns and all of that, right? It's something that this country also is still grappling with, and they haven't figured it out. And for a large part, there's a huge part of the community or the country that oppose it. I mean, the evangelicals or the conservative group, they oppose this. Not to mention some people also within the leftist movement. Some of them oppose this too. So it's not something that's wildly received. And again, this was made law. The bill and the acceptance of this was officially done in 2012 by a black president. Okay? It's important to identify that. So it's something they just accepted. Now they want the rest of the world to go and get it. Now, that's the hypocrisy number one. So you find the likes of Kamala Harris. You find the likes of a sitting president, Barack Obama, a black sitting president, who I just mentioned earlier on, that you've never found and you would never find any white president of the United States before him or after him push a bill. President Trump did not go around pushing an LGBTQ bill to any other sovereign nation outside of the borders of the United States. You've never found or seen President Trump, even in the United States, push that. He's a Republican, so naturally he opposes that. But even Democrat president in the past, Bill Clinton, and many others, did not publicly push or promote that lifestyle. They did not. But of course, it was convenient for them to use a black face, just like you find a black woman today who goes around trying to push this, something that they just accepted in their own country recently, on other sovereign nations. So imposing a lifestyle they've just accepted on other African countries. Now, that's hypocrisy number one. Hypocrisy number two is that you don't find the same pressure against other countries or other nations. Because most people it might shock you to know that Africa isn't the only continent that opposes the LGBTQ lifestyle. Asia opposes that. China, India, they're not with that. The entire Arab nation, they're not with that. Saudi Arabia, Dubai, the UAE, none of them are with it. You don't find Barack Obama, former president of the United States, you've never found him go to Saudi Arabia and pressure them over there, even though they know that there is a law and a strict, harsh punishment against this practice. You equally don't find Kamala Harris going to any one of these places, China, India, or let's just even say the Arab nations. She wouldn't dare to do it. But they'll find Africa. Okay. So that's hypocrisy number two. Okay. So let's talk about why Ghana, this is a problem for Ghana. Let me tell you why this is a problem for Ghana. Because a lot of Ghanaians are asking, because I've watched a lot of Ghanaians in the media talk about why is there so much pushback against Ghana when the likes of Nigeria did it, Uganda did it. So Uganda was sanctioned. Uganda was heavily sanctioned. And Uganda basically told the United States to go to hell. We don't care. And they were able to weather the sanction. They don't care. Many other African countries, Kenya too, we don't care. Nigeria too, we don't care. Now, here's where it's going to be a problem for Ghana. Ghana, of all these other African countries, is the only one that backed itself in a corner by inviting the West to its country. What do I mean by this? The present president of Ghana did something that backed Ghana into a corner in 2019 when he made and created a campaign, the Year of the Return. The Year of the Return was a campaign that invited African Americans to Ghana. So African Americans today find Ghana as the number one destination to relocate to. There are a lot of African American migrants in Ghana who have relocated in Ghana. A lot of them have come home, but Ghana is the number one destination for African Americans or Black Americans to relocate to. Now, why is this a problem for Ghana? It is a problem because the African American group in the United States are more likely to accept the LGBTQ lifestyle than any other group. Now, don't take my word for it. There was a Gallup poll in 2012 that basically said people of color are more likely to identify as LGBTQ than any other group. The Washington Informer also said Black people are much likely to accept or identify as LGBTQ than any other group. And also UCLA School of Law published a report in 2021. And what that report identified is that 1.2 million people within the African American community identify as gay. African Americans make up 13% of the population in the United States. And that is in comparison to 6 million whites who identify as gays. Whites make up 66% of the population. And then 2.5 million of Hispanics. And Hispanics make up 17% of the population. Now, when you factor within the African American community, those who practice this lifestyle covertly without coming out publicly to identify it, because the community is known to have what they've coined undercover, lifestyle, those who are undercover, gays or lesbians. When you factor that in, that number is basically about 50 to 60% of the population. So it's a very high, which is why the Gallup poll as well as the Washington Informer have published their findings in their reports that African Americans are more likely to identify with this lifestyle. So then that now brings me to what I was talking about with Ghana. See, when Ghana invited them over, what Ghana didn't realize is that you're inviting people from the West with a lifestyle and a belief system that is different from your own. And so which is why we're seeing the reaction from African Americans right now against this bill. It is going to also become a problem because Ghana is about to get a lot of sanctions against them for this. You're going to find Black Americans or African Americans who are going to reach out to their legislative bodies in the United States, to the likes of Kamala Harris, to many also, and make sure that they impose more heavy sanctions against Ghana, because the way they're coining this is a violation against human rights. Okay? And so with that stance, Ghana is about to get a huge red eye and black eye for this. This is something that here in the United States, most of us are grappling with. It's a conversation that you find. Here, let me say this before I go further. I don't mind whatever you do with your lifestyle, whatever you want to identify, it's your prerogative. And I think many people will agree with me. It is the imposing it on other people that a lot of people have an issue with. So that is something that is being it's going on here. Now, Ghana is about to have all of that in its country, because when they invited African Americans, who I've just said, in the United States, there have been studies, research, they're more likely to adopt this lifestyle than any other group. When you invite them to your country, you are also basically going to be inheriting their belief structure, their cultural norms, and what they identify with. It is essentially going to be a clash of culture that you're going to see. And it's going to be something that Ghana is going to have to address and deal with. Because while you opened your arms to the West, you forgot that your culture and the West are opposite. And you're going to find that it is something that we're going to start seeing more and more of this. Now, the reason why a Nigerian or a Ugandan or a Kenyan can be like, pass a bill and say, we don't care, is because these are not favored by African Americans to be a place of destination. So they're good. They're not favored, right? So what you're going to see over the next few years is a lot of Western sanctions against Ghana. You're going to see a lot of U.S.-backed opposition against Ghana for this. Because here's the point I am trying to make, and here's why I'm saying this. The lifestyle, the LGBTQ lifestyle, is something that the U.S. is still grappling with. It was a conversation that has been going on way before 2012. Way before 2012. However, it was something that they were not going to publicly push or pass, because for most part, this country was founded on, evangelical doctrines. That's how this country was founded. So that type of talk isn't something that a lot of presidents, whether Democrats or Republicans, were going to come out publicly and endorse. But until Barack Obama became president, see, they always can find a black person to do their deals for them. So Barack Obama was the president they used to pass this, which is why Kamala Harris, even while she is in the administration of Biden is the president of the United States. You don't find him in Africa going around talking about it, because he's white, and no white person, as I mentioned before, Barack Obama, will ever put their face out like this. They will find one of us. You'll find a black person. And why that is also important is because now that African Americans are making Ghana their home, they're going to gain the ears of this current administration, right? To ensure that while this bill gets passed, or Ghana feels the brunt of this, because it's a lifestyle that they have adopted. It's a lifestyle that they have welcomed. Okay? It's a lifestyle that they practice. I mean, if you look at most African American celebrities, and you see this all over the place. I mean, the current one now in the news is P. Diddy. I mean, we see what's going on with him. You see the likes of Will Smith. You see the likes. There's many of them that practice this covertly, which is why I said that when you factor in those who have not publicly identified as gays, that number within that community is more than half of the community. That community also has, a city. If you go to Atlanta, there's 2 groups in the United States that I know of who has a city that you go to and you're more likely to find that lifestyle in, and it's white people and black people. If you go to San Francisco, you're going to find a lot of white people who identify with that. It's all over the United States, but you'll find a city like San Francisco, that practices that, You go to Atlanta, black people, that is called basically the black mecca for LGBTQs, okay? You won't find Hispanics, you won't find Asians, you won't find Africans or anywhere else in the United States, right? Now, again, what you do with your lifestyle is your lifestyle. Is your prerogative. I don't advocate for any harm to come against anyone. People should not be, attacked or, discriminated on against based on their race, color, sexual orientation, or anything like that. I do not advocate for that. However, I also don't advocate for the imposing of a practice on a culture that don't accept it. When you have a culture where 90% of people, 99% of people don't believe in that and don't accept it, right? And then you have someone imposing that. I don't accept it. I think people should be free to practice whatever they want to practice, do whatever you want. Don't oppose it on other people. Africans, that's not our way. That's not our thing. We don't oppose you practicing it. If that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. It's all good. Now, when you start imposing it on Africans and saying Africans have to accept a lifestyle or a cultural norm that you've just accepted in the West, that's hypocrisy. So Ghana's got something coming for him. Now, here is also why I said there's going to be a retaliatory response by the United States against Ghana for this. Recently, Jamaica was put on a travel advisory. U.S. lifted and put Jamaica on a level 3 travel advisory. Recently, Jamaica and many other Caribbean places, the Bahamas, have been given a strike, and there's a travel advisory. And so Jamaica now has a level 3. You know what a level 3 is? It's basically right up there with Haiti, Afghanistan, places where they consider as high violence and crime rate. Can you believe that in Jamaica? Now, a lot of people are seeing this as a retaliatory response against what happened last year. Last year, there was a U.S. diplomat who was gay, lesbian, who Jamaicans refused to grant diplomatic immunity to because, according to the Jamaican officials, that will be seen as them supporting the LGBTQ thing. So they refused this. The United States responded by also revoking the diplomatic immunity of many Jamaican nationals and diplomats. So many are seeing the recent travel advisory against going to Jamaica as a retaliatory response of what happened in 2023. Do you get what I'm going with here? Whether it is or whether it isn't, that's what people are connecting it to. So Ghana is about to have that type of response against her. Why? Because Ghana invited African Americans who practice a lifestyle like that in the United States, who are going to gain the ears of their government officials who are pushing this in public, right? They're going to get the ears and they're going to impose more sanction against Ghana. So Ghana is about to feel this. And that is because of what the current president did. Now, I have since talked about this in my videos, that whole year of the return thing. And Now I want to talk about Nana Akufo-Addo, because this bill isn't final yet. It needs a signature of the president, who I believe is not going to sign this. Okay, hear me now. Nana Akufo-Addo is not going to sign this bill. I think he's going to dance around it. I think he's just going to tiptoe around it. His administration is coming to a close next year. He's got one more year. I think he's going to leave it to the next administration to deal with this. Now, why do I say this? Because Nana Akufo-Addo has been known to really be in bed with the West. He's not going to sign this because he knows what that would do to his country, and he knows what that would do to his image. I want you to take a look at his response to that interview with him and Kamala Harris last year when she was asked. I want you to take a listen to his response, and that will give you an indication to why I said he's not going to sign this. And I'll be right back.
Thank you for the question. First of all, we don't have any such legislation here in Ghana. A bill has been proposed to the Parliament of Ghana, which has all kinds of ramifications, which is now being considered by the Parliament. It hasn't been passed, so the statement that there is legislation in Ghana to that effect is not accurate. No legislation. The bill is going through the Parliament. It's going through the Parliament. The Attorney General has found it necessary to speak to the committee about it regarding the constitutionality or otherwise of several of its provisions, and the Parliament is dealing with it. At the end of the process, I will come in. But in the meantime, the Parliament is dealing with it. And I have no doubt that the Parliament of Ghana will show, as it's done in the past, first of all, its sensitivity to human rights issues, as well as to the feelings of our population, and will come out with a responsible response to the proposed. The legislation was a legislation that has been provided as a private member's bill. This is not an official legislation of the government, but it is one that has been mooted by a handful of private members. So we will see what the final outcome of it. But my understanding from a recent discussion I had with the chairman of the committee, the substantial elements of the bill have already been modified as a result of the intervention of the Attorney General.
So you kind of see how he danced around this. You see how he danced around it and how he talked about, well, the legislation has not been final. To his knowledge, there's no legislation in Ghana that really criminalizes anyone. And he talked about how let's just wait and see. You see what he's doing right there? That is a far cry from what we've heard him publicly say, which is basically that he's against an LGBTQ lifestyle. While he's in office, he's not going to back any bill that supports it. So essentially, he's opposed to any bill that will promote that lifestyle. And essentially, he will back anything that's basically is against the LGBT lifestyle. Basically, we've heard him say this. But you don't hear him say that while standing next to Kamala Harris. Now, why is that? Because Ghanaian president, as I've mentioned in the past, is a guy that says one thing and does another. Is a guy who is in bed with the West. He wants to be seen favorable to the West. He wants to be friends to the West. He wants to ensure that he says and pleases them no matter what, even at the detriment of his country's culture and the culture that which he comes from. So I don't believe that he's going to pass it. He's got 14 days to pass this. And essentially, he's going to have to respond. And so it'll be interesting to see how he does. It'll be interesting to see the fallout that comes out of Ghana after he signs it, if he signs it. It'll be interesting. I think that Ghanaians are in trouble. I think this is going to basically cause Ghana to become an enemy of the United States. I think the United States is also going to put travel advisory against Ghana and also begin to, put warnings against anyone traveling. There's going to be a retaliatory response against Ghana. Why Ghana? Because Ghana invited the West over. Ghana basically slept and was in bed with the West. And the citizens of the West who have made Ghana their home. While it is great, you can go to Africa, and I'm happy for African American or Black Americans who have made Ghana their home, and it's great to have them go and visit the to visit a continent where their ancestors were taken from. But also, we also must equally address the fact that that community and that demographic is more likely, according to what I've read for you all, to accept that lifestyle. So that is something they're going to bring to Ghana. That is something they're going to push in Ghana. And Ghana is going to have to deal with that. Ghana is going to have to deal with it. And so it'll be interesting to see in the coming years what this will evolve into. Because for us in Africa, that is a lifestyle that we don't accept. And Africa isn't alone in this. It's essentially most part of the world. They don't accept this. And it'll be interesting to see how they address this issue, because it's going to be an issue for them. And I, for one, I'm going to bring you guys updates on this story. But anyway, thank you all for watching. Please like the video, share the content, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all next time.
Varje gång jag bak på dig, jag tänker vilket kap jag har gjort. Jag skulle gå tillbaka till tid, göra om allt igen.